Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 376 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. This lady's beauty was comparable to clear lake water, free of impurities. Her smile looked as though it reflected her inner heart, pure and flawless, making it seem that any thoughts that were overboard or out of line would be blasphemous to her. Qin Mu retracted his gaze, his face full of smiles. He suppressed his wildly beating heart and thought, compared to that monster cult master Li Qianxing, she is much more dangerous. When it comes to manipulating the hearts of people, Li Qianxing is still a novice. Had I not met Zhu Wuchen before, I would have been seduced by her. However, this lady has a fault, her breasts aren't big enough. Within the Jade Sea, winds whirled, waves crashed, and frightening roars were heard continuously. That two gods hid among the darkness, exchanging blows with their divine arts and creating a scene of earth-shattering devastation outside the slow-winding pavilion. Qin Mu turned and walked into the pavilion. Brother Yun, it'll only get busier here. Since we are free, why don't I use the opportunity to undo your bloodline curse? Yun Jianli quickly followed him, and they entered the sea view gazebo within the slow-winding pavilion. Qin Mu sat down and asked, "Who is the God King in the sky? Does Brother Yun recognize him?" Yun Jianli said, "That person is using an image, not revealing his true identity. However, from his divine arts, I can tell who he is. It's quite easy to recognize such an existence. He's one of the four great heavenly kings of the celestial heavens, God King Nanming. The person in the sea is ancient god North deity Qin Mu. Nanming thunder fire against North deity's 5 great thunderclouds. Although they conceal their true identities, they are unable to fool me." Qin Mu's third eye at the heart of his brows opened, and he executed the supreme palace enclosure higher knowledge, mobilizing his consciousness. In an instant, his consciousness became immeasurably strong. Within his third eye's hexagon-shaped pupil, his consciousness transformed into a straight ray of light that shone on the heart of Yun Jianli's brows. Right at this moment, dim daylight suddenly appeared in the sky, with the sun looking quite dismal in the thick fog. However, as the sun flickered gently, countless suns appeared behind those dark clouds instantly. One by one, they hung in the sky, hiding behind the clouds. Following which, innumerous three-legged black crows flew from these suns, charging towards the clouds and penetrating them to arrive at the jade pool. All sorts of shrill cries were heard as a myriad of three-legged golden crows charged towards the gazebo, within the slow-winding pavilion in the darkness. They dragged bright flames with them, blotting out the sky. Yun Jianli couldn't help but glance outside, his voice hoarse as he said, "It's great sun sovereign." Yang and the dragon Qilin hurried over. When they were close to the gazebo, Yang suddenly transformed into a dragon sparrow and flew onto the roof. She looked nervously at the golden crows that were charging in from all directions. Qi Jiui was about to rush over when Yun Chuxiu smiled. "Young Master Qi, it's very dangerous here, why put yourself in harm's way?" Qi Jiui's gaze was warm. "It's more dangerous being with you. You're affecting my Dao heart." After saying that, he walked towards the gazebo where Qin Mu was. Yun Chuxiu furiously followed him. Suddenly, many dim stars appeared in the sky. They looked shaky, as though space-time was unstable. One by one, they collapsed into the Jade Sea, creating ear-deafening noises. The stars pierced the extremely thick dark clouds, dragging their long tails of flames with them. As they crashed into the Jade Sea, the surface was blasted open by the impact. In the sea, simple but imposing gods stood up one after another, reaching up to grab the golden crows that were dancing in the sky. Innumerable giants in the sea and countless golden crows in the sky were killing each other, preventing others from nearing the slow-winding pavilion. Qin Mu wanted to remedy the problem at the source, So his consciousness followed the flow of Yun Jinli's blood to the source of the curse, finally discovering it. At this moment, an angry roar came from the sky. A gigantic palm parted the sun, clouds, and crows in the sky, crashing towards the slow-winding pavilion. As it moved through the air, the friction between the palm and the air caused it to be set ablaze. It looked certain that it would pulverize the island containing the slow-winding pavilion, burning everything to ashes. At this instant, the sound of a gong was heard. The island was bathed in gold as a ball of golden light appeared in the west. It tumbled and rolled at high speed, arriving above the slow-winding pavilion. That ball of golden light spun rapidly, and within it, a white tiger could be faintly seen, jumping and rejoicing in joy. Countless rays of golden sword chi shot up into the sky. In a split second, that giant flaming hand was pierced with 1,000 holes. A cold snort came from the sky. Suddenly, flames began to burn as a shining pillar descended from the sky. It stabbed upright into the jade sea, its height immeasurable. Using the slow-winding pavilion as the center, it started to stir vigorously, seeming as though it was trying to overturn the seas and rivers. That ball of golden light remained floating above the slow-winding pavilion. It released its light rays, and Dao sound trembled and resonated. A white tiger pounced from the golden light, intercepting that pillar repeatedly. That pillar swiftly shrunk until it looked like a golden needle, appearing and disappearing unpredictably, making it difficult for that ball of golden light to intercept it. At this moment, a golden list flew from the darkness, fluttering in the wind. The golden needle pierced the golden list, but it wasn't out of danger yet. The golden list and golden needle clashed in the sky, radiating terrifying levels of power. The people on the island trembled with fear. If one of these attacks landed on the island, they and the island would be wiped out completely. Even their souls wouldn't survive. Even a numinous sky realm individual like Yang was unable to shield herself from such attacks. There was only death. Brother Yun, don't be distracted. Qin Mu sensed some disturbance in Yun Jinli's consciousness, so he reminded him, saying, "You're distracted, and this is interfering with my efforts to rid your body of the bloodline curse." Yun Jinli couldn't help it, saying, "Celestial Venerable, how can you be so nonchalant? Are you not afraid? If any of the divine arts slips through those strong practitioners that are guarding you, it'll be enough to kill us 1,000,000 times over." Qin Mu's consciousness surged into his spirit embryo divine treasure. It looked like a gold-colored torrent, striking the spirit platform and transforming into a dazzling sacrificial altar. Naturally, I'm afraid. However, they will show proper restraint. Those that want me dead won't completely fall out with me, as that would be equivalent to ripping the celestial heavens apart. If they want me to live, they will protect me at all costs. This is where our chance of survival lies. Brother Yun, did you not make preparations for your death already? Why are you still afraid? Yun Jinli's primordial spirit stared at the sacrificial altar in the spirit embryo divine treasure. Qin Mu's consciousness actually condensed into this physical object. It was the first time he had encountered such a strong consciousness. Because of my bloodline curse, I'm unable to live until I become a god. Hence, I'm not afraid of death. However, when actually facing death, I'm still afraid. He couldn't help but laugh. Outside, a terrifying wave came rippling by as flames flew out of nowhere, like an enormous fire bird sprinting at full speed through the darkness. On top of the gazebo, Yang, who had transformed into a dragon sparrow, cheered and leaped around excitedly, almost bringing it down. It was getting chaotic, as a continuous stream of strong existences joined the battle. Among the darkness, a Mingdu heavenly gate rose from the Jade Sea. A life and death book flew out from the heavenly gate, radiating brilliantly and shining its light towards the island. Just as the life and death book appeared, a giant dragon head emerged from behind the island. Its long neck passed over the island as its head moved to the front of the slow-winding pavilion, shielding it from the light of the life and death book. As the giant dragon breathed, thunder and lightning from everywhere within 10,000 miles crashed into the Mingju heavenly gate. Suddenly, an old-looking tree descended from the sky, smashing the giant dragon's head into the Jade Sea. Its body wriggled, circumventing the island so as to avoid crushing the people on it. The giant dragon coiled around the tree, locking it in place. The roots of the old-looking tree suddenly expanded and climbed up the giant dragon's body, as they battled each other among the sea and clouds. Yun Jianli, Qi Jui, and the rest were dazzled but had fear in their hearts. The island that the slow-winding pavilion stood on was too dangerous. They could be smashed into flying ashes at any moment. Even so, the culprits weren't the strongest existences. The strongest existences in the celestial heavens were the 10 current celestial venerables. Those 10 were the strongest existences since the beginning of time. The hexagon-shaped pupil at the heart of Qin Mu's brows was getting brighter, mobilizing the grand primordium origin stone with all its might. The golden sacrificial altar that he had set up in Yun Jianli's spirit embryo divine treasure was immediately activated. This sacrificial altar peeled the curse from Yun Jianli's bloodline layer by layer, as though it was peeling silk off the cocoon of a silkworm. At this instant, the sky trembled incessantly. Dao sound filled the sky, and for a moment, weighed upon the existences with concealed identities that were battling among themselves in the Jade Sea. This power was so frightening and strong that it was hopeless to even think of resisting. Not only were the people on the island petrified, the terrifying existences that were fighting had also quieted down. In the blink of an eye, the Jade Sea was quiet and calm. Giants with concealed identities hid among the gloomy clouds, while the sun and moon rose from the sea to take shelter behind them. The stars floated into the sky one after another, disappearing. The golden light dispersed as the golden list retreated. The white banner was gone, while the golden needle pulled back. The divine dragon dived into the sea, and the black tortoise escaped. Only the quiet Jade Sea remained. It was as though the world-annihilating battle earlier didn't happen at all. The sky continued to be overcast by dark clouds, leaving one unable to see any daylight. Total darkness engulfed the Jade Sea, with the slow-winding pavilion being the only light source. At this moment, a human figure appeared above the sea surface, walking on water as he approached. He gave out an aura that was beyond the Emperor's throne realm, capable of terrifying and subduing awe. He had that kind of power and ability. He wanted to kill, and there was no one in the celestial heavens that was able to stop him. And right now, he was there to kill someone. He continued to conceal his identity, not wanting people to recognize him. The man he wanted to kill was Celestial Venerable Mu, a celestial venerable that imparted the way to become a god to the people, allowing the realm of God to become secular. He didn't want to leave too many traces, in case there were people who would use this to suppress him or get rid of him. Right now, he had no one standing in his way. And he was very close to the slow-winding pavilion. Yun Jianli quickly turned his head and said hoarsely, "Celestial Venerable Mu." Qin Mu remained fully focused on undoing the bloodline curse, saying indifferently, "Calm down. What happened just now was only the pre-show. The main event is starting now." Cold sweat appeared on Qi Jui's forehead, as he felt a sense of hopelessness. Yang returned to the gazebo, her feathers quivering uneasily. She produced a lantern out of nowhere, but was still trembling slightly despite holding it. The lantern was given to her by Celestial Venerable Yu, and it contained her divine arts. Whether this would protect them, Yang was unsure. Only the dragon Qilin laid prone at the foot of the pavilion, his eyes closed, fast asleep. At this moment, a light shone from beneath the sea surface. That man suddenly stopped walking, lowering his head to look into the water. Underneath the sea surface, a paper boat was traveling below his feet, following his footpath like a shadow. On the boat, an elder was carrying a lamp. As that man stopped, the boat also stopped advancing. Within the slow winding pavilion, Qin Mu laughed. Does anyone want to witness an existence that has the cultivation of an incomplete celestial heavens realm exchange blows? No. Qi Jui said resolutely, over my dead body. Things have already gotten out of hand. His forehead was covered with cold sweat, and his heart was filled with overwhelming hopelessness. Elder messenger of death and Yudu's benevolent saintly king equal to heaven, they were both celestial venerable Yu, one of the 9 celestial venerables of the Dragon Han era, founder and creator of the life and death divine treasure. While the other figure remained unknown, he should be a celestial venerable of the celestial heavens. If the 2 celestial venerables were to battle, what kind of terrifying shockwaves would they produce? Not to mention the tiny gazebo, the tiny slow winding pavilion, or the tiny island, even the jade pool might not survive. Who knows, the entire celestial heavens might be smashed into pieces. That figure hadn't made a move, but continued to look at the tranquil sea surface. Beneath it, the paper boat was quietly floating in another world. It looked as though the sea surface should be over there in that world, while the bottom of the sea was over here. On the paper boat, Celestial Venerable Yu was silent and didn't make a move. Both of them were apprehensive, not willing to upset the balance of things. Nor were they keen on destroying the jade pool or celestial heavens. At this moment, Qin Mu finally removed the bloodline curse in Yun Jianli's body. It was a type of blood-colored consciousness, and was being forcefully restrained by him on the sacrificial altar of Yun Jianli's spirit embryo divine treasure. Qin Mu relaxed. Suddenly the blood-colored consciousness condensed into a blurry figure that let out a weird and indistinct laugh. He, which master of creation has removed my bloodline curse? I didn't expect there to be another master of creation in the celestial heavens. Qin Mu's consciousness communicated, saying, it's me. Oh, it's Celestial Venerable Mu. That figure was shocked. You actually understood the spells of my race. You are worthy of being a Celestial Venerable. However, you can't even protect yourself, yet you have the audacity to ruin my plans. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You could simply stay here for protection, yet you insist on provoking me. Suddenly, the sky above the jade pool started to shake violently, impressively signaling the arrival of a second celestial venerable. The fragile balance between the figure on the sea surface and celestial venerable Yu was instantly broken by this unexpected visitor. At this moment, even Qin Mu's scalp turned numb against his will. It was as if he was falling into an abyss. Even though the celestial heavens realm remained incomplete, it was still the highest realm, which made even an incomplete version of it terrifying. However, Celestial Venerable Yu might not end up as the opponent of the mystery person on the sea's surface. All these years, the celestial heavens had been trying to search for various Emperor's Throne techniques, with the intent of forging a complete celestial heavens technique, by combining all of them. Although they hadn't succeeded yet, they still accumulated a lot of techniques. It had already been a long time since Celestial Venerable Yu left the circle of power in the celestial heavens and went to Yudu. The number of strong practitioners at the Emperor's Throne realm that had died in combat were many, and some of their souls belonged to Yudu, which meant that Celestial Venerable Yu might have acquired many Emperor's Throne techniques. However, for a long time, the use of Yudu had been weakened by the celestial heavens. An example of this would be the order by the celestial heavens to Black Deity, son of Heaven Yin, to construct Mingdu. Its purpose wasn't just to weaken Earth count, it was also meant to intercept some of the existing souls of dead Emperor's Throne practitioners. As such, it would be impossible for Celestial Venerable Yu to create a celestial heavens realm technique. There was also the sheer number of resources occupied by the celestial heavens, as well as Tao ancestors' classic algebra calculation of the various ancient gods' great Tao runes. Therefore, Celestial Venerable, you couldn't be the opponent of the mystery person on the sea. Furthermore, another Celestial Venerable level presence had arrived. A cold sweat broke out of Qin Mu's forehead. He originally thought that the person who saved him had met the ancient Celestial Emperor. If the ancient Celestial Emperor did help, it would be easy to rip apart the celestial heavens. It was just that he didn't expect Celestial Venerable Yu to be so concerned with his safety that he would personally intervene. He was touched, but he was also worried about Celestial Venerable Yu's safety. Celestial Venerable Yu flared up at almost the same time as the mystery man on the sea. He raised his lantern and smacked it heavily. Immediately, it was as if the Jade Sea had flipped itself. In the next moment, the Jade Sea disappeared from the celestial heavens and appeared in a world shrouded in darkness. The Jade Pavilion and the Jade Sea of the celestial heavens were forced into Yudu by him. At the same time, the mystery person struck too, and celestial palaces appeared behind him, one after another, connecting heaven and earth and creating a vast celestial heavens. At the same time, another figure appeared on the surface of the Yudu Jade Sea, with lights bursting forth behind his body. Incomplete yet identical celestial palaces appeared one after another. The two great celestial venerables raised their legs together, and used their might to step on the surface of the Jade Sea as the space around them violently shook. The Jade Sea that was being pressed on returned to the celestial heavens. There's no way that Celestial Venerable you can handle these two people at the same time. Qin Mu abruptly intervened and forcefully eliminated the consciousness of the Master of Creation on the sacrificial altar. He followed up on this by rising and shooting a beam of light from between his eyebrows. Qi Jiui, Yun Jianli, and the others were shocked and couldn't understand what was going on. They believed that Qin Mu had become extraordinarily daring enough to strike out against those two celestial venerables. Unexpectedly, the divine light from Qin Mu's third eye was shone in the direction of Yun Chuxiu, which perplexed the two of them even more. The light from Qin Mu burst forth, and a coffin appeared beneath Yun Chuxiu, which led to a scream from her as she backed off. Qin Mu swept his sleeves as that coffin opened to reveal a dense divine light within. Yun Chuxiu's heart jumped when she saw the corpse inside. Qin Mu walked towards the coffin and solemnly said, "If Celestial Venerable you can't handle the situation, I will use Soul Guide to summon the soul of the owner of this corpse, reconstruct her soul, and revive her." Just as Qin Mu looked at her, Yun Chuxiu glanced at him. Their eyes met as Yun Chuxiu laughed. As expected of a great wizard. She went silent after that, and the sky rumbled once more as another Celestial Venerable arrived. His aura burst forth as a series of celestial palaces appeared, and Tao voices rang through space. However, this particular Celestial Venerable wasn't after Celestial Venerable Yu, but was after the two Celestial Venerables from just now. Those two were stunned and found the situation hard to believe. Considering how they hid their real identities in order not to bear the charge of murdering Celestial Venerable Mu, they were unable to identify this new Celestial Venerable who just appeared. Qin Mu relaxed as he closed the coffin, and sent it back into the Qin word land within his third eye. He then nervously paid attention to the situation. Yun Chuxiu appeared by his side to watch the situation unfolding on the Jade Sea as she whispered, "So, you know who I am now?" Qin Mu nodded and whispered in an even softer voice, "Yes. I once summoned souls for the Empress on the ghost ship." Yun Chuxiu laughed. "I have been trying to find out the identity of the one who summoned souls for me a few 100,000 years ago. I then heard that there was an invincible great wizard, so I deduced that it was you, and I turned out to be right." Qin Mu laughed loudly. Yun Chuxiu's eyebrows drooped shyly as she twisted the corner of her shirt, acting as if she was a young lady experiencing her first love, as she quietly threatened him. "You better keep my sister's corpse properly. If not, I won't forgive you." The other ancient gods need your reconstruction methods, but I don't. My soul is perfectly complete, and I already escaped the binding of my ancient god corporeal body a long time ago. Qi Jiui and Yun Jinli, who watched from inside the pavilion, couldn't help but feel sour over the scene in front of them. Even though Yun Jinli knew that this lady was up to no good, he still couldn't help but feel some sourness and jealousy. None of them expected that Qin Mu and Yun Chuxiu weren't flirting, and were actually both threatening one another. Qin Mu merely found Yun Chuxiu's Achilles heel and threatened her with the prospect of reviving Mistress Yuan Mu. Meanwhile, although Yun Chuxiu did help Qin Mu break the deadlock, she was threatening him too. However, Qin Mu could finally verify a theory of his, that the sister of Celestial Empress, Mistress Yuan Mu, was indeed dead, and she died at Celestial Empress' hands. The mysterious attack on Celestial Empress during the Dragon Han era was finally solved. Yet, some suspicion remained. For instance, why was Celestial Venerable Ling's hairpin stuck in the back of Mistress Yuan Mu's head? According to Qin Mu's theory, Celestial Empress had already reached an agreement with the Heaven Alliance then, and when she returned home, she encouraged Dragon Count country to rebel and trap the ruins of End. Celestial Emperor sent out the Feathered Forest Guards as reinforcements, and Celestial Empress created the facade of another Celestial Empress attacking her in front of Wei Suifeng to make the world believe that she died. In reality, she killed Mistress Yuan Mu and faked her death to get away with it, creating a facade of her death in the process. Afterward, when Celestial Venerable Ling intervened and saw the incident where the Feathered Forest Guards and their ship became a ghost ship, she made up the transmigration incident involving the Feathered Forest Guards to get rid of any evidence. Meanwhile, the body of Mistress Yuan Mu wasn't put into the pair of flowers in the ruins of End. This was because the primordial spirit of the Empress was injected into Mistress Yuan Mu's corpse, so that it could return to the celestial heavens and announce to the world that Celestial Empress hadn't died yet. The ancient Celestial Emperor was particularly fond of Mistress Yuan Mu, so he reveled in helping her hide the fact that she wasn't the real Celestial Empress, not knowing that the person within her body was indeed the real Celestial Empress. As such, Celestial Empress rid herself of a disobedient sister, and completed the process of substitution. After that, she schemed with Celestial Venerable Ling to create Zhu Wuchen, using her to trick him and bury the adulterous couple that betrayed her. After getting rid of the ancient Celestial Emperor, she, Celestial Venerable Yun, and Celestial Venerable Hao flew towards the celestial heavens to take the body of Celestial Emperor. In the end, the identity of the person who ultimately took it remained a mystery. After connecting the dots on these events, Qin Mu was left with only one mystery: why was Celestial Venerable Ling's hairpin stuck in the back of the head of Mistress Yuan Mu? Could it be that after Celestial Venerable Ling tried to use her hairpin to kill Celestial Empress, Celestial Emperor unexpectedly exploited this opportunity to rid himself of the body? That was Qin Mu's theory, but whether it was the truth, one couldn't tell. On the Jade Sea, the four Celestial Venerables faced off against one another, which made the scene stifling, causing the people on the island to be unable to catch their breath. Besides them, there were numerous palace maids that were squeezed together on the island. Although they were either gods or half-gods and thus had extraordinary bloodlines, if the four Celestial Venerables fought, they would die. Xu Jun, now you can find out the identity of this master of creation, right? Qin Mu rallied his consciousness and told the big ball of flesh on the grand Primordium Origin Stone's sacrificial altar, the deal between us is complete. The master of creation he was talking about was the third Celestial Venerable to appear on the Jade Sea. This person was the prehistoric master of creation that was hidden within the celestial heavens, the person who cursed Celestial Venerable Yun's bloodline. His arrival tipped the balance between Celestial Venerable Yu and the mystery person, forcing Celestial Venerable Yu to strike first. On the sacrificial altar, the big ball of flesh became a big eyeball and helped Qin Mu observe that person. That Celestial Venerable's build was imposing, and he was shrouded in dense light, which made it impossible for one to see his face clearly. Incomplete. I can't see his face clearly, Shu Jun retorted. Qin Mu apathetically laughed. I have helped you find the master of creation you sought, the deal is complete. As for the fact that you can't see his face clearly, that's because of your incompetence, which is none of my business. Shu Jun replied, it's not that I'm incompetent, it's that you are. I borrowed your eyes to look at him. The reason I can't figure out his face is that your cultivation is too weak and can't penetrate the light surrounding his face. As long as I don't know which celestial venerable of the celestial heavens he is, the deal between us isn't complete. Qin Mu felt resentful. At this moment, the face-off between the four celestial venerables formed a weird balance, and no one dared to strike first. Celestial venerable you came from afar. Unexpectedly, your arrival made my celestial heavens suffer from internal strife. Suddenly, a loud voice came from beyond the skies, and a god with white eyebrows, a white mustache, and white eyes descended from the heavens, surrounded by rays of light behind his head. He laughed as he said, all of you hide your faces, not daring enough to reveal your identities. But I, ancestral God King, am not afraid. I want to kill even my father, Heaven Duke. So why would I not want to kill a mere celestial venerable Mu? The sky lit up as a large glow descended from the heavens and smashed onto the surface of the Jade Sea. The light was restless, as it appeared with the grey-haired Heaven Duke. His body slowly rose up as it grew taller and larger. Old man, ancestral God King saw the descent of Heaven Duke, and his eye violently pulsated. Heaven Duke was silent. At that moment, space violently shook again as another celestial venerable, who also hid his identity, arrived. He laughed and said, Heaven Duke, your arrival from afar helps to elevate the celestial heavens. The situation lost its balance again. Heaven Duke grunted as a sound arrived, rumbling like thunder, proclaiming, Earth Count, you still want to sit this one out? The masses were shocked. Black chi rumbled from deep inside the Jade Sea as the sea cracked open, and the twin horns of Earth Count rose from the surface. Even Earth Count can't sit back and watch anymore. In the pavilion, Yun Jinli suddenly felt relieved as he said, the more people that arrive, the safer our situation. After all, if these people strike, the outcome of the battle is less than certain. In addition, the celestial heavens might be shattered because of it. Thus, they won't strike. Qi Jiui also felt relieved as he cautiously whispered, however, the celestial heavens will fracture because of this. Earth Count, Heaven Duke, why didn't the two of you tell us that you were going to arrive simultaneously? Another celestial venerable approached the scene on the Jade Sea whilst hiding his identity. Before he stopped, flames suddenly emerged as South Deity's vermilion bird appeared in the center of all of these existences. In its hand was a peach flower, and she smiled and said, everyone, my capabilities are weaker than yours. I'm merely here to deliver an item, not to interfere with the situation. She stuck the peach flower onto the surface of the sea, and suddenly, countless peach trees appeared. They extended for thousands of miles, blanketing the surface of the Jade Sea. Within the peach trees, there were multiple young ladies who hung lanterns underneath the palace's roof before returning to the palace. Qin Mu was relieved with Celestial Venerable Yu's arrival. Part 376 end here. Thank you for watching.